Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Babbling Irons. Happy New Year to everyone. Let's start with that. We are going to be publishing a lot of content this year, so make sure to tune in, subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, this is a nice little match preview to kick off the year. Leeds away, 5 defeats in a row in the Premier League for us guys, so couldn't be going into it with better form, really. How are you guys feeling about West Ham at the moment?
How am I feeling about West Ham? Let's just say it's a chore at the moment to get behind David Moyes. The team I can get behind, but I'm struggling to get behind the manager. That's my view at the moment with West Ham.
Sloth, are your thoughts different or probably not?
I did a stadium tour over the Christmas period and the bloody Helter Skelter was closed. So I'm not very happy about that. But thoughts on West Ham are just they're pretty depressing, to be honest, at the moment, aren't they? It's looking bleak, and for the positivity that we showed in the first 15 minutes against Brentford, it didn't cover the basics, the basic errors that we showed across the game. So I'm a bit nervous about our season, and I think, it's pretty hard to just put a brave face on and try and be positive. But yeah, I'll try my best.
Well, it's not going to get any easier for us, really, as we go to Leeds next at Ellen Road on Wednesday. So that'll be tomorrow, which is another tough game. And, after losing 5 in a row, as we can kind of see a comparison of both ourselves and Leeds this season, we've played one more game than Leeds. They are slightly above us in terms of the league position. They're 14th, we're 17th. Couple more points than us, but the same amount of wins. So it's been a really underwhelming season, to put it lightly, so far. Bar the Europa Conference League campaign, which we're still in. But, going to Ellen Road, I know we went there, I think, last season and won 2-1 with that last-minute Antonio winner. Do you think going into this game, we should be looking to maybe stick with a back five or change back to a back four? What are your thoughts from the Brentford game and, going into this Leeds game against what they kind of do and how they press?
Do you want to go, Sloth?
I think the first 15 minutes against Brentford were the most positive it's been in a while. And I think it really covered some of the weaknesses that we've shown across the start of the season, with particularly, again, I don't want to be too harsh on him, but Souček in midfield. And when our best 11 are fit, I think the back five is the way to go, because you can get Aguerd, Zuma, and whoever your preference is in that third spot. I'd personally go for Kehrer just because he's that bit quicker, and he's rated for a reason. He's also covered with those two next to him. They can anchor out any sort of error he tries to make. But I think stick with the back five for now, and it should help us soak up some of that pressure. You go to Ellen Road, you're going to get intensity and work rate. You're going to get that press, and you're up against pace. So if you have, I beg if we play a back five, I just beg play with Ogbonna and Dawson, because as much as it's nothing against them, they are two of the slowest human beings in the Premier League, and include the coaching staff in that, like, of all sides. They are just really slow, and they are fantastic readers of the game. But when you're up against the Leeds attack, you need pace. So I'd stick with the back five, with the caveat that we have those younger defenders.
Yeah. Let me just go to you here, Mike, for kind of how Leeds are going to set up and how they're going to play against us. Do you actually think this could be actually a good game for Moyes to kind of set up with that back five? And, it's a game where we're not expected to have, ample amounts of possession. And actually, we might be able to see a bit of counter-attacking that we were used to seeing a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah, I think there will be an advantage because Leeds do leave spaces because they are so forward thinking, and they like to essentially create overloads and almost in some ways trying to bewilder you by bombarding you with players. So that will open up spaces, but part of the problem is as to how low is that mid to low block that we play in which to compensate for the pace. And one of the problems that we've had most notably is the separation between midfield and the centre forward. So, even when Antonio came on against Brentford, it didn't really help any kind of connection. Obviously, we played better in the first 15 minutes, but again, if we are going to be soaking up pressure, when you then look to burst out of that, you then obviously need to make sure that you have players close enough to your centre forward in which to essentially play off of them and to exploit space. Other problem is Leeds have pace. We are quite one-dimensional in our pace throughout our team. So playing on the counter is difficult for us because once we get ahead of a player, we don't necessarily have the ability to stay ahead of the player. Like, for instance, they have Sinistera on playing in the left-hand side. If he beats Soufal for pace, Soufal's not going to get back at him. His only option is to try and slow him down by grabbing his shirt or a defender coming across in which to cover that space. So we are going to be probably under the cosh a bit. It probably is a good thing for us. I think it would have been a good time for us to play or a good team for us to play had our set pieces been on point, which they really haven't. And I think that's something that Leeds have always really struggled with in the Premier League, and particularly against us. I think we've in the 2 games at Ellen Road that we've won, we've scored we've scored at least 2 from set pieces. Now, this time round, our set pieces are woeful. So it's a concern that something that had been such a threat for us, or so reliable for us, particularly against Leeds, isn't necessarily something we can kind of count upon if we're able to contain and restrict the space that we give Leeds in front of goal.
Sure. Let's just look at kind of the dangers that Leeds are actually going to, possess and carry out against us before we look at areas that we can hit them. But is there any players in particular, or, either the left side or the right side, that you're particularly concerned about going into this match?
No, I've already said Sinistera. He's good. I can't remember how to say his name, but Noto, the young Italian kid, his feet are amazing and he is blisteringly fast. Aronson has really taken to the league as well. And when you look at how they managed to, you can't really say nullify Newcastle, because Newcastle were wasteful.
They should have won. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like a 2 times XG to not even a 1 XG. I don't always go in with XG because it's ultimately it's accumulation of shots as opposed to the quality of 1 or 2 shots that get it to that point sometimes. But you look at it and go, they are a team that can be awkward to kind of score against at times. They are exploitable, but yeah, again, I think it's that pace. Pace is so hard to deal with when you don't have it, and they can be quite dynamic in their, how they rotate and how they move. So it's going to be a big ask of Rice, specifically the fact that I think they will overload us in the midfield, especially if we're only playing Paqueta and Rice. The overloads centrally could be difficult for us to manage, and that's something that Brentford, when they did get on ball, they did very well against us because they utilised the numerical advantage they had of having 3 in there to stifle how we could stifle us in possession, but also when we were out of possession, they were able to find passes because they always had that numerical advantage and they moved around to make those passes and passing lanes.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we all expect us to be a back 5 again. So yeah, that numerical advantage in midfield is probably going to be there. And, as we saw against Brentford, we don't want to go into that too much, but it was a big problem and they were kind of cutting through that midfield very easily, especially, towards the latter stages of the game when we were kind of just moving it backwards and sideways. And it was just, really easy for them to just kind of sit off, soak that up and then, hit through on the counter. So I think it'll be a little bit different because we're not going to be expected to have as much possession. We're away from home in a difficult place to go. We've seen Leeds this season. They have also struggled at home, but, they have beaten the likes of Chelsea 3-0, not too long ago. So they have the quality, and, if their fans are up for it and they have that intensity, I think we will have to be very, very good to get something from the game. And, Moyes is going to have to definitely drill that into the players to not give anything away stupid from the start, because at the moment, it just seems like we go through a spell of 10, 15 minutes of playing well and then concede a stupid goal, and then that's it. And we're kind of done from that point. So on the flip side, how can we look to hurt Leeds? Slough, what do you think?
I think one of the things is going to be the introduction of Aguerd. If Aguerd plays, I think his distribution and his pace is going to be key for us. He's obviously not shown it this season just purely down to injury, but he was absolutely fantastic in that Moroccan side. And we saw glimpses of what he can offer West Ham. He's got the pace to carry it past people with ease, but he's also got the distribution to find someone out wide, whether it's Benrahma who can cut inside or Bowen who can run at someone. Then he can do that. And we have lacked a centre-back who can do that consistently. So for me, Aguerd's going to be a real key if we want to get anything out of this game. I also think that, perhaps controversially, I think Paqueta's going to be key because he can create something. And I know people were talking about how often he gave the ball away or some of his misplaced passes, but at least we have someone who's trying to create something. And we've said this time and time again about Benrahma, but when someone creates something, as opposed to just safe passing to their own side, to their own player who is 5 or 6 yards away, if it's a sideways pass, if it's a backwards pass, I can't even speak English. It's what West Ham has done to my brain. If it's just a simple pass, I mean, there were so many chances when we could have began a counter attack or looked to unleash someone down the wings, and we just played it sideways. I think Paqueta is at least offering something that is different in terms of the range of passing at the moment. So I think he's going to be key. And as well, we know he likes to get stuck. So if he can do that, if he can bring all those factors to the table, I think it's going to be a real key for us.
Yeah, I think as well, like players like Benrahma, Paqueta, Fornals when he's on the pitch at the moment, if we're, say, a goal down or we're not leading in a match, it just feels like we don't really have a plan to unlock a team. And, when these players are getting on the ball, you'll see Benrahma do it a lot. He'll kind of cut inside and just almost be forced to just cross it in. And, we saw that against Brentford. The amount of crosses and failed crosses we had was unbelievable. It just looked like we did not have a plan at all. So, yes, these creative players like, Paqueta, Benrahma, Fornals, when they are on the pitch, they do need to take a bit more responsibility. But at the same time, it just doesn't look like we have the system in place to be able to do it, or we're not drilled enough to, for players to be making those runs. Bowen rarely makes a run in behind these days. And especially when a team's gone 1-0 up against us, they can just sit in that low block, absorb anything, and then just counter-attack. Is pretty easy to defend against. So I think players like Paqueta and Benrahma, they have to do a bit better, but I also think the system we're playing under Moyes is probably limiting what they can do on the pitch as well.
Yeah, so I'll feed into a little bit more on that negativity, then I'll try and be a bit positive. I think the Brentford game showed where Moyes goes when he's in trouble. So he needed a goal, and his response was, I put Souček on. So his response was not to carry on trying to hold possession, trying to encourage them out of space. It was to put the big man on so we can start throwing crosses in. Essentially, it's not having the faith in your players or not having drilled your players enough onto how to create patterns of play, how to draw players out of position. And if you look at much of the time when we had the ball, there was a huge swathes of space directly in front of their back. Well, I say it was a back five plus their, three midfielders, but there was a huge swathes of space that we could have gone into to commit a player, but instead we just happened to just try and recycle to out wide and then whip in aimlessly. And I say aimlessly, and I mean that properly, because whilst there were people stating that there were good deliveries or deliveries coming in the box and Scamacca should do more, yes, he is 6'5". Yes, he is fairly decent in the air. But these weren't crosses that were aimed for him. They were put into areas, and in often case, they were overhit and underhit. Even when Antonio came on, he couldn't do anything. Effectively, what we're doing is we're just putting it out wide, or essentially players not willing or wanting to take responsibility, with the end result being just get it out wide, whip it across, and then it's on the centre forward to do it. So the centre forward takes the blame, not the person making the delivery. So often it was Scamacca's not doing this enough, Antonio's not doing this enough. And there's often a conversation around movement. Movement's not good enough, but ultimately, what are you moving for? The ball is either not good enough into feet or even into the chest. It's just hit. And yes, there could be more work by Scamacca to maybe run down channels, but he is not that type of operator. We're not adjusting to that. And again, when we are getting the ball up to, there's not players. Essentially, it's incumbent on Benrahma and Bowen, when we've deployed that back five, to actually sit narrower, not wider. They need to sit narrow to support Scamacca, and the width is obtained by Emerson and Soufal, which is not what we're doing. We're changing. Everyone seems to be getting in each other's way. Cresswell did the same with Emerson. They got in each other's way because they're both trying to get in the same area. There's no real... When we were looking to break down, players didn't necessarily know what to do. And sometimes by compacting the middle of the pitch, if we would have concentrated there and then gone wide by using Emerson and Soufal, we might have got more joy in that game. Now, turn it positively for this game. If Zuma is fit and if Aged is fit, they both must come into the team.
Yeah.
Much to what other people won't agree with, again, I would put Kehrer in. So I would be dropping Ogbonna and Dawson collectively or together. They're both players who put themselves on the line and they do read the game. But pace is key. Also, their ability on the ball isn't as good as Kehrer's or, in fact, Aged. What that also means is we can be a lot more aggressive as a defensive line. We can push higher because we've got three players with decent pace. Aged and Tilo can also spread quite wide. So, again, we can push up Emerson and so on. Then it's incumbent on Rice to essentially marshal in between those channels as to protecting Aged or Tilo, as they maybe have to move out to the right side or the left side to cover that left back, right back space. But more importantly, what Tilo and what Aged would do is be able to play between lines. Now, the other centre-backs can't do that. They're going to force Paqueta and force Rice to take more responsibility centrally to get in between the lines. They're going to ask and demand of Bowen and Benrahma to also make those changes and to come inside to make that, to open up the spaces out wide so they can hit those diagonals. So it's actually, what it will do is force players to actually take responsibility and to move into areas where they can cause a danger. And again, allow us to step up. Also with their pace, it means that if something does go in behind, we're a little more comfortable than what we would be with Dawson and Ogbonna. And we have seen at times, whilst Dawson has been credible, when he is under pressure with pace, he can sometimes be rash, and he has given away a couple of silly fouls. Man City game last season, I always go back to that foul he gave against Jesus. There was no need for the challenge. He was going wide. But again, it's those kind of moments of panic takes over and then a wrong decision is made because I need to get that. Again, you'd say Dawson doesn't necessarily shouldn't be dropped because his form has been good. But I think you have to think about the overall benefits to this team. And in a back three, if that's what we're going with, and we all think we are, you do have to drop Rice. Oh, sorry, not Rice. Sorry, you do have to drop Cresswell. Going so out there. No, you have to drop Cresswell. He can't play in that formation for me because he's not a good enough left wing back. He doesn't have the pace. And Gerd needs to be on the left side. Zuma needs to be in the centre, essentially as that sweeper or a stopper, being able to come out of the line to press. Yeah. And Tilo, again, it's that player who knows a right back role. He knows when to move out wide. Also, he can help and be that. What we saw with the likes of Sheffield United have deployed it well, and also Chelsea in the past, is that you utilise that right centre back, or at least one of your wide centre backs, as an underlapping or overlapping centre back to, again, create an overload in midfield, create an overload in attack as they are coming forward and the team shifts accordingly. So there are ways we can deploy it to be positive. It's just whether we're going to go that route is the question.
Well, let's take a look at what we kind of think for our predicted XI against Leeds. And I think there were some points there you made really well, Mike. So if we look at the defence to start with, we've got Agerd and Kera coming in. Maybe Dawson or Zuma, depends on whether Zuma's fit. But if Zuma isn't, then it's likely to be Dawson in the middle. Cresswell over Emerson, left wing back. I think we'd probably all agree that we'd rather Emerson, but Moyes being Moyes, it will probably be Cresswell. We'll have to find a place for him to stay in this team. Rice and Paqueta, I think Moyes came out in his interview and said that that worked pretty well. So I don't see him changing that. And then the front three, for the type of game it is, I can kind of see Antonio coming in for Scamacca, based on Scamacca's performance against Brentford and how he'll probably want to try and hit Leeds a bit more on the break in transition, and Antonio will kind of run those channels a little bit more than Scamacca. So what do you guys think? Would you be happy with this lineup? Would you change anything? I didn't even mention Fabianski in goal, so that's another thing to start with, I guess.
Yeah, I think probably one change that I think that's pretty much bang on. The only thing I'd probably say is the fact that Agerd goes into centre back, Dawson as the right-sided player, and Cresswell drops into left centre-back, and obviously then Emerson. That's the only thing that I would say I think Moyes would probably go for. Fabianski, for me, I think now's the time to transition to our long-term goalkeeper. We bought a goalkeeper to be a long-term one. Fabianski's only here for this year unless we extend. So, and whilst he's very much a steady Eddie, I think the Arsenal game started to exploit some of his weaknesses, and in particular, the second goal was appalling. I'm sorry, he shouldn't be getting beaten as he did by Martinelli, and his pace off the line is a problem. The mistake for the goal, Brentford's first goal, by palming it straight out into space. It was a good reactionary save, but I think
you can catch that.
Done more to push it away, or at least push it around the post. I think he had enough to push it away from the immediate danger. As we say, I think that formation works if we deploy a more narrow approach from our wingers' point of view to get them close to. And as I say, I think it probably is likely to be Antonio. I think he's going to look to try and play that more.
It's not your face there. You're not happy with that.
I don't think any of us are really happy with it, to be perfectly honest. I think Scamacca is by far the superior player, and we should, kind of persist.
Record goal scorer. Can't say that.
Did you not see his skill against Brentford? His amazing air shot.
Yeah, it's a fantastic dummy when he could have played in Bowen. And again, it just shows the level of maturity and understanding of what's happening in front of him. All he saw was, I'm going to have a crack. Now, I'm not against players having a crack, but at least connect with your sodding foot and then try and steam engine it into the top corner or into row Z, but at least make connection with the sodding ball, when he could have played it out to Bowen, who actually then could have fed it into the box. So
I think my big problem with Antonio at the moment is people have this idea that Scamacca's lazy. When I watched the Brentford game, I managed to get it on my dodgy Amazon stick stream from the States. Antonio came on and offered absolutely nothing. We keep saying, he works hard or whatever. He hasn't offered anything at any point this season. He just has made countless error after error.
Yes.
given the ball away, and you know, this is a guy who he had to score 4 against Norwich to get 10 goals a season to get his bonus. That would be, and I'm sorry, it's not good enough for Premier League level. I think moving him out wide is potentially the best thing to do with him, because we know he's going to give you the headless chicken run every so often. He's going to give you that outlet, and he's going to bully the player he's up against. But we cannot keep having this notion that he is just that because he's our record goal scorer. When we've had the likes of Shamak, like John Carew in the Premier League, I don't know how you can give that as some sort of high accolade. He's not good.
It's because it's beating Paolo, isn't it? Because
and he needs a kick up the arse, because Scamacca, yeah, he's off form, but he's still got 6 goals this season. And yes, you can say that's in Europe, but he's at least giving you an outlet. And he's
that one whiff of a chance he had, he absolutely powered it. It was a good save from Raya, but you could see Raya wasn't comfortable with that shot, and it was just a mere half chance, and he hit it on the spin. And
but the main issue that I kind of want to cover is just how poor I think Cresswell and Soufal have been, and it's this same issue that have saved them for countless times. You know, I was a big defender of Soufal last season in particular, because what he offered going down that right side was basically what Cresswell was offering for 2 or 3 seasons previous, where he would offer that ball into the box every single time, and we'd have someone on the end of it, like a Souček, to throw themselves at it. Now, that's all well and good if teams haven't figured that out. But when the delivery is as bad as it's been, and when your wing backs, your left back and right back, are as slow as both of them are, then you constantly get caught out of position and offer nothing. Like, it's all well and good to say, well, he's delivering this and he's played the most accurate passes into the area of any wing back or any left back in the country. Yeah, that's good, but how many games have we won?
Let's just end it with how we think the game's going to go. Let's get our score predictions in what, you know, potentially could be Moyes' last game in charge. We don't know what's going to happen, but let's start with you, Slav. What's your score prediction for this one?
I'm gonna go positive. I'm gonna go with a 2-1 win.
Mike, any different?
I can't see us winning it, to be honest. I will go for a draw, 1-1 draw. But I can see us getting done by like a late goal, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah, I was going to go 2-2. I think there'll be goals, and I think it's going to be tough. I think it just depends if we score first. If we go 1-0 down, it's going to be a big struggle to get it back, because we just seem so hopeless when we go a goal down. But we'll find out. Thank you for tuning into this preview. Leeds away on Wednesday night. Hopefully we can get 3 points, because it's starting to become a relegation battle. 17th only on goal difference at the moment. So same points as Nottingham Forest, which is crazy considering what we thought at the beginning of the season. But yeah, let's see how it goes. Hopefully we can get the 3 points. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Babbling Irons. And as we mentioned at the start of the video, we're going to be posting a lot more content this year. So make sure to subscribe and tune in, put on notifications so you don't miss a video when it goes live. That's one thing left to say. Come on, you Irons.